Hello, hello, hello. What's up, everyone? I hope you're all doing well and had a fantastic weekend as usual. If anyone is in the live chat, could you let me know if we are live and if everything is fine before we cover everything on Bitcoin? We are getting a bit of a move up right now, but I think what comes next could be pretty obvious, maybe. We'll have to see. So, is everything good, guys? The sound, the audio, the sound, the audio, the sound and the video. Hope everything is fine. Um, well, while waiting for anyone in the live chat, I think we'll just start very quickly with the announcement. As usual, if you guys want to trade with a 30% fee discount on Bitunix, you can sign up with our referral link, which will be available in the description of this live stream. Especially with this week, after what happened with Binance. I mean, if anyone has his money on this exchange, you probably want to look at another exchange. Of course, it doesn't have to be Bitunix, but it's one that I use and I think is great. And of course, if you sign up with our link, you will have a 30% fee discount, which is very useful. And that's a lifetime offer. And finally, if you want to have access to my imbalance indicator, you will find it inside of our courses, and the link will also be in the description of this live stream. This indicator, of course, helped us call this stop on Bybit. Once again, we had the imbalance right at the high before this offered the all-time high for that massive reversal to the downside. So with that said, we'll dive into everything. Doesn't look like we have anyone in the live chat, but that's not a problem. I'm still gonna cover everything as usual. So if you remember on Friday, I had made an update right when price was down there, and I pretty much had two scenarios. First one, which didn't offer any trade, was that Bitcoin would move straight down to take out the low of that wick, which we have been looking for since last Sunday when we were doing the live stream up there. We were looking for price towards we were looking for price to move towards the fill of that wick down to $102,000. And the reason for that is because if you look at the history, every single time you have a very big liquidation, the wicks tend to get taken out. If I show you one very quick example, look what you had there. You had a massive liquidation wick to the downside. You could take this one to the upside as well, but the liquidation was on the drop. Guess what happened? You moved up, took out the high of that wick, came back down, took out the low of that wick before getting another bounce to the upside. So if you look historically, every single liquidation that you've had, the low of these liquidations tend to get taken out. And that's why overall I would like for that wick to get taken out. So that was the first plan on Friday, which once again did not offer any trade. But the second one was that we would see a bounce from here to move towards the fill of this imbalance just around $111,000. And when I finished my update, we did have another confluence to look for that bounce, which was on Binance. If you open the 12-hour chart, as you can see, we had two imbalances on that drop, which of course 12-hour imbalances are very important. So when you see two in a row on a drop, this offers a good chance of a bounce to the upside. And right now that we have seen the break back above the open of the first imbalance, I would expect at some point this week to get the fill of this imbalance, which is the resistance and target shared in our Friday's update, which is up there. So with that said, can we add anything to this scenario? Well, the first thing that I want to see very quickly, we have any confluence since this range? We have the point of control. So I think I could make this resistance a bit smaller. Doesn't have to be that big. And make it just from here to here. I think that would be a bit better. So if you want to be exact, from $110,900 to $111,500, this should be your big resistance on Bitcoin. And right now, as you can see, this uptrend doesn't really look like it wants to stop. So as you have got the reclaim of the 12-hour open and you have this target, we could expect the move towards this level. Now we can hide this because we don't need it right now. One thing that I would note is that we do have a pretty big CME gap at this point. If you don't know, the CME closes at 9 p.m. UTC time. If I show you on the CME chart, 8 is this candle, so the close will be at 9 pretty much. Okay, so if we go back to Bybit, we can take the close of the CME, which will be at 9, should be right there. The open of this candle is the CME, which comes in at $107,000. And right now, as you can see, we do have a pretty significant, not a massive one, but we do have a pretty big CME gap of over 1.5%. And at this point in time, in my opinion, it doesn't really make sense to expect a runaway gap to see a move higher in the charts. I usually know how to spot runaway CME gaps. One that we caught was last week, if you remember. If I show you on the Discord, and look, runaway. And this was 2 Sundays ago or 3 Sundays ago when we had the big move up on Sunday. This is when I saw that we had the potential to form a runaway gap and see a push much higher this week, which did end up happening. We got the runaway gap and moved much higher. But right now, it doesn't really make sense to expect, once again, a runaway gap. So what I would look for going into tomorrow and maybe a bit later this week is that we drop to fill that gap. We have this 4-hour imbalance, so I would take the open, any confluence. This would be my support probably, which comes in $106,800 to $106,500. This would be my support. Basically, to me, we have two scenarios here. Either that would be my favorite one, we drop before reaching that resistance, so maybe we do something like this, drop from here and fill the CME plus the 4-hour, the 1-hour imbalance and hit the order block. At this point, if we get this tomorrow or if it happens after tomorrow, I will be interested in opening a long position to see that reversal up to our resistance, because that would offer a very nice trade of, let's see, over 4%, which is a very nice trade, of course. So that would be my first scenario based on the CME gap. We have a pretty big one. Doesn't really make sense to expect a runaway gap here. We have this target above that we talked about in our Friday's update. We have the two 12-hour imbalances on Binance, which gives us a good chance of seeing the fill of these imbalances up to that level. And of course, right now, as mentioned, we have the CME gap. So that would be the first plan, which would offer a very easy long position in my opinion. We get the job before reaching that level. You open the long and once again target this area. Second scenario, which I wouldn't really like, is that we move up tomorrow. In which case, of course, if we get a reaction, then I will be interested in opening a short position to target the fill of the CME gap and hit this support level. And at this point, of course, we can see, do we get the bounce and a move higher? In which case, if you break this resistance, I would expect to move towards $116,000 around that resistance. But of course, if you lose the support, break back above this, so then you would expect the fill of the wick and the break of $100,000. So with that said, we can keep it extremely simple on Bitcoin. For myself, I have one main scenario. We can put them into folders if you want, but that would be that we top out somewhere around here. It doesn't really matter because I'm not going to be looking for shorts, but top out somewhere around here, drop to the support, get that bounce up to our resistance, and from there we can see if we get a rejection or if we break above it. In my opinion, you will see a move towards $116,000, $117,000. So that would be my first plan and my favorite one. Let's put this here for the long position. And this should be the potential short position. Either you get the rejection or you move higher. Let me put it like this. And that would be my first plan. So basically a move up, so basically a drop before a move up to that level. Plan one. Best. Then the second plan, I wouldn't really like this one, but it would be to get the move up first. In which case, if we get a reaction, I will be looking for that short for the potential fill of the CME gap and hit our support level down there. So that would be a bit more bearish in my opinion. Why is it doing that? Okay. Plan two. less likely. So these would be my two plans for Bitcoin. Pretty simple. This one would be my favorite. And of course, if we get this, that would be very nice. Okay. This is the $107,000. Okay. And we can move on. With that said, we can move on. Just hide this one up here. Sorry, you needed up here. Hide this. Break. Okay, so hide this, and for now we can just focus on this. We don't really need to look at anything else. If we get the move up, no reaction, then we look for higher prices. If you don't get the job, no trades offer on my part. If we move over to Ethereum, this one was kind of unfortunate this week because I was looking for a long on Ethereum on our support. Now, if anyone was a bit more aggressive, this would have offered a bounce of 3%, which is of course pretty satisfactory. That's not a small trade at all. Personally, I wanted to wait for the Asian session, which ended up offering a drop. Then at this point, I didn't open a long position as shared in the Discord. We pushed lower, but then on this drop, this one, you had 4 hourly imbalances in a row, and now you got that big bounce to the upside. So pretty unfortunate on Ethereum that we had to push below my support. On the lower time frames, we did put a double bottom with this one. As you can see, we didn't take out that low, so bit of a complicated trade to take, in my opinion, on Ethereum. Now, one confluence that we could look at to expect higher on Bitcoin. Hello SCGMF, I hope you're well. So one confluence on Ethereum that we could look at to expect a break of that resistance would be that, if you remember in our last stream, we did talk about this wick to the upside that we had on Ethereum. So pretty much I was looking for potential of both of the high and low of that wick to get taken out. At this point, as you can see, the high of that wick has not been taken out. So this is a nice confluence to get. If we get that drop on Bitcoin, we open that long position and we get the move up to that resistance. If we get the break, of course, this should be Ethereum once again would be a nice confluence to expect to move higher, because if Ethereum moves higher, then Bitcoin will move higher to fill that wick, which would give us an overall target for our long position if it gets offered $217,000. So you take the range highs on Bitcoin and you take the range highs on Ethereum, which would give you the fill of that wick. At this point, of course, if that happens, then we can look at resistances. I can already see this order block plus a 4-hour imbalance, but I don't think it's super interesting to look at this level right now. Could maybe mark it out just as a bit of idea for now. This would be, so 12-hour open, 12-hour order block. Do you have a daily? No daily imbalances. Well, we have the 4-hour imbalance, which is decent enough. And look maybe at this as well. Point of control is just a bit below, which is not bad. Yeah, we have the point of control around this area. So on Ethereum, if we can get the similar scenario on Bitcoin, same thing, I would look for the fill. Let me fix, it's fixed. So we could look for the fill of this 4-hour imbalance. Can also remove this. What was that? Yeah, that was that low. So I'm gonna keep this for myself. On Ethereum, you have the 4-hour imbalance right on the daily open. So something like this would be nice. Down to fill this imbalance and then move up to fill that wick to the upside and then hit the next resistance. So looking at Ethereum, I'm leaning just a bit more bullish on Bitcoin. On the medium time frame, I would say I'd still expect the fill of that wick to get, the low of that wick to get taken out and the break of $100,000. So of course, if we break above that resistance, then I could look at something like this, take out the highs, and then reverse to the downside. On the medium time frame, I think something like this looks pretty nice, I have to admit. And that would be a nice idea. So yeah, very simple for both Bitcoin and Ethereum. Doesn't look like it wants to stop, unfortunately. I really need to see that drop before hitting that level, or else the long position is going to be a bit more complicated. Any volume on Binance? Not really. Oh, yeah. No imbalances at the highs. So could still be ready for higher prices. But in any case, wherever it tops out before reaching this resistance is not a big problem in my opinion. Even if it does this and that, then the long position is still valid. So someone did message me privately and wanted me to look at the stock market plus the precious metals, so we can look at this. We can stock market. I've been saying this for a while. At this point, it just looks strong. There's not much to do. Do you want to be shorting the stock market? I don't really know. To remember, we had maybe a target to the upside on the S&P, which was right there, around $7,000. But I think this is still possible, even with last week's drop. You can see it already got recovered. Not completely, but we are getting a strong bounce to the upside. So of course, if the S&P and the Nasdaq continue on moving up, I would look for this area next, just around $7,000. Apart from that, not much to note on the stock market. It's just very strong, and getting in the way of that isn't super smart in my opinion. You have easier assets to short, as shared before, which is Bitcoin. Okay, this one offered a very easy swing, a failed auction above the all-time high with an imbalance. So for the stock market, that would mainly be it. Be cautious, of course, because everything is super overextended, but we still have that target above for now. Of course, if we see weakness on Bitcoin, then the stock market could follow maybe now or maybe a bit later after hitting that target to the upside. For myself, I have completely sold off AMD as mentioned before. My first take profit, unfortunately, was before the news came out. It was down there. Then we got the news, we got the move up, and I sold the rest of my AMD position, which I all bought inside of this area down there. For Sophie, I am waiting for the earnings to come out, which should be next week. Was it next Wednesday? Tuesday. So I'm waiting for the earnings to come out, which, I mean, depending on the reaction, I will probably start selling off this stock. Just because, once again, everything is super overextended. And Bitcoin, even if it makes one more new all-time high, I think ultimately we will come back down to hit much lower prices. So for my stocks right now, not doing much. I'm just waiting and observing. We're still not seeing a lot of weakness on any stocks, even Robinhood. Bit of a job, but until you lose this gap, I think it's not a big problem. And yeah, I am still looking at new holdings. Ideally, we come down to fill that gap, but I don't know if we don't get a big drop um, over all the markets. Will we fill that gap? I would really like to see it get filled before looking to add anything on this stock. But this looks like a very nice stock that I have on my mind. And apart from that, not much. So my main stocks are AMD that I have sold, Hood not sold yet, and Sophie. I am just waiting for the earnings to see if I sell anything. If we get a bad reaction, I'll probably sell my entire position on Sophie. It's been a massive move up since April, and yeah, I think it's time to take profits for me. Then the precious metals, gold, same thing. I think if we find a top on Bitcoin, we will find a top on gold as well. The reason for that is that everything has been moving up together. So it could make sense that when everything goes up together, everything will come down together. Plus, of course, I still have this Elliott wave count, if anyone didn't know. I think it still looks very good on the much higher time frames. This is a wave 1, 2, that was your wave 3. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with a massively extended wave 5. Forgot to see if we have any targets for gold actually. And look at the normal fib extension. That's gonna come super high. I mean, $8,000, does that really make sense? For now, I don't know. I don't think we move up that high. But if we remove the log scale, that wouldn't be super interesting. Yeah, this one is not very interesting. So I don't know, on gold, it's gonna be hard to find a target for the top simply because it's just so overextended. But I mean, I can look at the Elliott waves and you can look at the overall sentiment. You can see after the peak euphoria in 2011, very strong uptrend. If I remove the log scale, very strong uptrend, peak euphoria. This is when the bear market started. Right now we can look at the same thing. Of course, I'm not shorting gold and it doesn't really make sense to short this asset, but 1 2 3 4 5, an extended and euphoric higher time frame wave 3, lower time frame wave 5 could offer the top before you get that wave 4, and then another move much higher. Silver, we talked about it before. I mean, this one has smashed above the all-time high. We had been waiting for this one for a long time. Silver still looks strong and doesn't really make sense for me to expect anything other than higher prices. Even though I am more cautious on gold, I am a bit more bullish on silver, simply because it took longer to pump. We have finally broken above this all-time high, which was a massive one. It was put in back in 2011. So on silver, I would still expect higher prices, and silver stocks, one of them that I'm looking at, is finally starting to move, like AG, First Majestic Corporation. As you can see, this one is finally starting to show a bit of life, which is nice to see. So on silver overall, I would say we probably, next target probably 50, 57, $58, because $60 would be the next big psychological level. And you can see that just as we had the Elliott wave count on gold, with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the higher time frames, this one on the lower time frames does look like a 1, 2. Wave 3 could move much higher, doesn't matter, but you'll have a wave 3, a wave 4, and then a wave 5. Don't remember if I looked at targets for silver as well, but I'm guessing that these would be very high and not interesting. $80, I mean, it's not inconceivable. I think it's possible. $80, that would be a nice wave 3, maybe wave 4, then wave 5. Find more confluence on it. Me 1 second. No, this one is not very good, is it? Yeah, I don't see any other range that I can analyze. I mean, this one is just too big to take a fib. A fib expansion doesn't make sense to take it from here. So Fibonacci wise speaking, it would be $80, but this one is just so high. I don't know, to me for now, I would just look around $60 and then take it from psychological level to psychological level. So $60, $70, $80. For now, you've taken the all-time high, everything looks strong. It does make sense to expect to move towards around $60, and then you can see what happens there. Okay, guys, we can look at some altcoins, but I don't think we're gonna, let's see, we could try to find any setup. In Binance coin, this thing is just nuts. I wouldn't cover this. Solana, if anyone did keep an eye on this coin, it did retest our support level, which was this one. It offered the first bounce, it's offering a second bounce. So Solana, I mean, it was very simple. If anyone kept an eye on this support, you had the nice imbalances on the drop and the recovery from there. So not much to note on Solana. You probably want to look for this level potentially to get tapped, because if Ethereum and Bitcoin take out their respective range highs, so Bitcoin towards 116 and Ethereum towards 4,500, then I think Solana could move towards this level. This should be an interesting one to look at if reached. Of course, if Bitcoin just rejects this resistance and drops, then all the altcoins, including Bitcoin, will drop. Any sign of slowing down on Bitcoin? Still no imbalance up here. Still no imbalance up here. Would be interesting to see what happens tomorrow when I wake up. I've taken out size, so maybe top out here. That would be nice. But yeah, Solana has just been holding our support that we shared a while ago. If it can keep on pumping, definitely look for $220 around that level. XRP, you have that massive wick to the downside, so I'd ignore this coin. Litecoin, same thing. And apart from this, all coins just look. We had this one that we shared last week, I guess, that offered a drop. Anyone took that short? 21%. I mean, yeah, altcoins, in my opinion, right here are not too interesting. I know some people are very interested in trading altcoins here. For myself, I think these wicks are massive and I would keep away from these coins. Except Solana, as mentioned before, we don't have a big wick to the downside. You can see this one looks very nice. Ethereum, same thing. I was looking to trade it this week, but it broke my support before bouncing. We don't have a massive wick to the downside, and overall, it still looks decent. While other altcoins, I mean, when you have these massive wicks to the downside, it's just a bit better to just leave them alone, at least in my opinion. So with that said, doesn't look like we'll have any questions this live stream, so we can keep it short. It's just been under 30 minutes, which is not a problem. So with that said, I will do a quick recap on Bitcoin, and then we can end the live stream right here. We'll do a recap as well on Ethereum as well. So Bitcoin right now is seeing a pretty strong move up on Sunday. My main concern with this move up is that we have a CME gap below, just below the daily open at $107,000. In this type of environment, it doesn't really make sense to expect a runaway gap. So that's why I'm expecting the fill of the CME gap. If we can get it between tomorrow and Tuesday, I will potentially be interested in a long position down there if we can drop before reaching my resistance up there. The main reason that I want to see this target reached is because if you go over to Binance, you have two 12-hour imbalances, and as you have broken above the open of the first imbalance, even if you get a drop now, I would expect the second open, I mean the open of the other 12-hour imbalance to get tapped, which if you go over to Bybit, you will see that this is exactly where my resistance is. So if we can drop once again before filling that second imbalance, that could offer a very nice long position. If we move up first, I would be very cautious and potentially interested in short positions because now we would have a very big CME gap below, which I'm not expecting to happen, which is why I put it right there, less likely. My opinion, we're gonna drop at some point, but it's just a matter of waiting. I don't see any interesting resistance up here. So once again, drop, pump, you break above that resistance, we will see, in my opinion, $117,000 next. You offer a big rejection. I would expect the fill of the wick down to $102,000 and the break of $100,000 to see a move down to $97,000. So the massive resistance this week will definitely be this one around $111,000. Breaking it would be a massive sign of strength. Offering a big rejection would open the doors for a drop towards $100,000 and even below. Ethereum does offer a nice confluence to expect a move higher on Bitcoin. Okay, so a move towards, once again, 116, 117. The main reason for that is that we have this wick to the upside that I would expect to get filled at some point. So with that said, same thing on Ethereum. You have a 4-hour imbalance down there around the daily open. If you can get a drop, get nice imbalances on that low, some wicks, offer that bounce to the upside, take out that wick, move towards that resistance around $4,500, and from there, of course, you can see breaking it would be a massive sign of strength, but on the other hand, you could simply reject and see a very big drop to the downside, which honestly for myself would be my main scenario. Why? Because if we go back over to Bitcoin, as shown historically, Bitcoin does tend to take out the low of that wick. So once again, even if we break that resistance and we see the move to $117,000, my favorite scenario will remain a move lower to take out that wick and break below $100,000. So with all of that said, thank you TGMF for the quick chat messages. I do appreciate them. But with that said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this live stream. I try to keep it extremely simple as usual. Bitcoin is forming a CME gap, which I am expecting to get recovered. One support below, one resistance above. Extremely important resistance. pretty interesting support, but we'll have to see what happens tomorrow and potentially on Tuesday. So with that said, once again, thank you everyone for watching the stream. If you could leave a like, of course, it would be extremely appreciated. So with that said, I wish you guys an amazing rest of the weekend, fantastic evening, and of course, I will see you all tomorrow inside the Discord. So see you soon, everyone, and goodbye. I'm so bad at ending these.